country is actually a local, and exactly for the reasons that you say. They're the ones that understand the local context. They're the ones that are able to communicate with a big, messy international bureaucracy and somehow translate what that can do at the local level. So I think we've been really grateful to be able to hire Pacific Islanders from each country to lead all those country offices. I think there's a lot more that can be done. We only have a couple of people in each country. I think those numbers can go up as, and as you say, having local people leading the utilisation of MDB and development partner resources is the way that this succeeds. It shouldn't always be international people doing it. You can hire Pacific Islanders to do this, and I think we're seeing that trend grow over time, but as you say, there's a lot more that can be done.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Any more questions from the audience? I don't see anything online as well. I'm mindful of the time, but maybe we can quickly touch on the issue of capacity constraint, because as everybody here has mentioned, this is a key finding in all of our evaluation. And Aaron already talked about, the Pacific specific constraint, especially in terms of the need for, the out-migration and the different need for us to be more smart and strategic about our approaches in terms of capacity development, post-project implementation level also, but also longer term in terms of institutional capacity. Since it is such a common finding in all of our evaluation, I wanted to take a few minutes to hear from the panelists, and anybody can share their perspectives in terms of what would be the approaches that you yourself may be using in your projects and programs in terms of addressing the capacity constraint at the project level, but also through your TA and other capacity development efforts. So I invite...
I think I've got the microphone, so maybe it's me first, and then I'll invite other panelists to add to that afterwards. But I mean, I think it's a key issue, and one I still don't think we've quite got to the bottom of yet in terms of finding always practical solutions for. I mean, I know Aaron's comments before about capacity supplementation. I think that's something we certainly look at as well in certain circumstances, but I mean, it carries its own risks as well in terms of, how it affects the local labour market that we always need to be conscious of as well. And so I think we're trying some different approaches to be able to manage some of those capacity constraints, whether long-term advisors, short-term advisors, making sure there are more local recruitment. And I think particularly we're probably, the pendulum swinging towards more of the local recruitment at the moment, given the expertise that is available in country at the moment. But I was just going to talk a little bit about maybe one of the other options that we're looking at the moment as well, which is particularly around some of the institutional partnerships that we have. And I guess some of the twinning arrangements that we've had between Fijian institutions and Australian institutions, and some of the success I guess we've had through that arrangement at the moment. So I think that for us has been a particularly effective model at times, because it I guess is cost effective in a certain way, that we don't need to have long-term advisors in place that will have people coming in from Australian institutions at strategic points to work with institutions here. So, for example, FRCS with the Civil Service Ministry as well, and our counterparts in Australia through the ATO and the I.T.S, to really kind of help through critical points in reforms that government's looking at the moment, to share the Australian experience of where we see value in terms of how we've looked at similar issues in the Australian context. And I note that context is not always going to be applicable here, but we can work with ministries here and then work out ways that some of those lessons that have been applied in Australia can be can be applied in Fiji. But a little bit of a difference in terms of, from some of the short-term inputs that we do through external advisors, is there's that opportunity for the ongoing relationship, even after, the teams have left Fiji, to continue to ask questions, to work with them, and then to come back again, at the next strategic point afterwards. And so I think, and it doesn't necessarily relate to the individual either. So, sometimes it can, once the individual leaves, that ability to kind of go back and ask questions later goes with it. But with the institutional partnership, that people can move on, but at least, I guess, some of the ideas that sit within the institution can continue to be shared afterwards. And so I think that's been, an area where we've seen some real success to date. And I think, speaking with counterparts here is, I think, the feedback we're hearing is they see particular value in some of those relationships as well, and is an option, I think, that we continue to explore, and whether that can deepen further across other areas where, where Fiji sees value in partnering with Australian institutions.
Thank you.
I'll just add one extra bit of what Andrew has said. I think, especially for Fiji, we have been investing a lot in capacity, especially with all the development partners being here, advisors coming in, assisting with the projects. I think the issue more is in terms of the retention of capacity in Fiji and some of the Pacific Island countries, because at any point in time, you might have somebody, a group of people that's doing certain things, but immediately the ability of the public sector to retain some of these people is not there. So I think we need to work on the retention. But the other important thing, which I think the development partners, and again, the governments working together with development partners can help with, is strengthening the institution side of capacity, which I mean, sometimes when we deal with projects, we get so heavily involved in the delivery of the project, and we might miss out on, don't really put a lot of focus on documentation, SOPs, legislations. These are some of the things, even when the people are not there, if somebody new comes in, that can help quickly build that capacity. And I think as part of all project management, especially at this point in time, that's an area that we'll need to build on. Apart from the people, the institutions that support this capacity, so that once he or she is not there, somebody can easily pick it up from there.
Emily, anything from yourself?
I think the institutional aspect is critical. In our new strategic plan, we have strengthening institutional effectiveness as one of our key focus areas. And that has to be in every other one. That has to be in food systems. That has to be in planetary health. That has to be in climate change. And what that looks like, I think, is different for each mechanism, but it needs to be designed in from the beginning. And the other one that I think that we don't talk enough about is about intergenerational work and how we can think about the people who are part of the institution, from being a student in primary school, coming to USP or another organization, ending up in a crop agency or a multi-lat agency, ending up as one of the Pacific elders. And how can we build that intergenerational knowledge transfer into more sustainable capacity? I think we need to be flipping things around and just asking ourselves, how can we do things in different ways? Because what children can bring to the table and what our elders can bring to the table, I think is going to be critical in the creativity that we need for the ongoing complexity and dynamic nature of the region.
Thank you so much, Emily. Well, there's lots we could talk about. Unfortunately, we have used up our time. It's been really a fascinating discussion. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists for taking the time and sharing your perspective. Definitely, we don't have all the answers, but I think this has at least stimulated some thoughts, food for thought in terms of what we can all do as members of the development community and development partners in terms of improving the development effectiveness of programs and projects. As Ben mentioned, the good news is that development assistance to the region has steadily gone up in terms of the volume and the number of projects as well. But that also, I think, raises the questions and challenges in terms of what we can do in terms of ensuring that these projects and programs deliver results for the region. So I would like to thank the panelists one more time. And also, please, did you want to say something? No. Before we close, we are very pleased to have Dr. Panguea, the USP Deputy Vice Chancellor for Regional Campuses and Global Engagement, for his closing remarks. And again, thank you for all of you for joining the session today, and thank you again to the panelists. And if I can invite, yes.
Yeah. I know it's very unpacific to intervene before the Deputy Vice Chancellor takes the floor. But thank you for providing a window of opportunity so that we can benefit from the sharing. For me, I've been in learning mode all afternoon. I've been a beneficiary of all the work that has been done based on the joint cooperation between Pacific Island countries and our partners. I have a very simple request. We've had a lot of good sharing. And based on the evaluation report, is it possible to try and highlight some of the success stories in the different projects, whether it's water supply, construction of a bridge, renewable energy? That way, all the other ADB member states in the Pacific can benefit from some of this, so that if Fiji is doing something good, we can maybe our Ministry of Works can request the Ministry of Works here in Fiji. We all learn from borrowed knowledge, and why do we have to repeat trying to learn the same lessons? So that is my request, so that we can benefit from all the sharing. Otherwise, it will be something that will be, whoever receives the report, I don't know whether they will be able to share it, but I think it's really important for us to be able to know exactly what works and what didn't work. Because sometimes we always want to be at the top of the queue, but sometimes it's good to be in the middle at the back, so that we can learn from the challenges other face. And if Kiribati is doing something good, like the capacity building in the context of the supplementation, capacity building, how can Samoa learn from that? So that nobody has a monopoly on a good idea, but too often we also focus on the source rather than on the idea. So that is my request, and I think it will be well received by the Pacific Island countries, given our unique vulnerabilities and also our peculiarities, so that we can learn something from what other countries are doing well, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. And heard loud and clear in terms of the importance of involving our communities. I think too often we put a big tick when it comes to consultation with communities. The question is it really effective consultation? Did we listen? More importantly, did we hear what they said? And are we willing to include some of their asks in the final project design?
Thank you for that question and request. In terms of sharing success stories, which I think was one of your requests. So one of the objectives, at least from the evaluation perspective, is one of the objectives of events like this is really to disseminate lessons and also share some success stories from my evaluation reports. And we can make some of those, a lot of those are already available to the public, but we are also working in terms of making our knowledge products more accessible in terms of lessons learned. So Ben, if you want to add a little bit more in terms of our outreach and the available information that might be helpful. Thanks.
One of the lessons definitely is that many of these projects that we evaluate, we don't then take the knowledge back to the countries where the projects took place. And that's a very important reminder that you've just given us. And we have a responsibility as the evaluators to take that back. And that's, as Sona was saying, that's one of the reasons why we're trying to engage more directly in the countries, share knowledge through different platforms, including online databases and access to lessons. And so thanks for that reminder. And it is something that we will continue to work on going forward. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you for the very informative presentations from the panel. I am Manuel from a non-profit indigenous organization in Fiji. We've been looking at some of the work that has been undertaken by ADB, particularly on the Senganga Nambowalu highway. And I go back to the concept of partnership and the need for thematic sharing, especially in terms of that 400+ million FJD or USD project in for Senganga to Nambowalu. The importance of early consultation, particularly with the grassroots, what has happened, social implications, particularly on high level of accidents on that road, whether there was any particular consultation that we did. So the second point that question that I would like to ask is in terms of ADB working with within the bank to ensure that their budget lines are in line with the political aspiration of the countries. I'm talking about the Pacific Blue by 2050. That is one of the donor budget item in the ADB. And on the other side, Japan is 70% share in ADB. So my question is, by having Japan as 70% share in ADB on one side, and we have the Fukushima wastewater dumping on one side, and we have the budget line for the current year for Pacific Blue by 2050. That is my question.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Aaron, anything from the regional perspective, please?
Thank you very much for the important question. On the highway projects and the importance of safety, I would highlight hopefully there is always a very large amount of consultation that goes in through the government system on all project designs, and all communities should be consulted in the preparations of projects, including CSOs and NGOs in that process. But the specific highway projects in Fiji, actually a main feature of those projects is safe road safety. You'll see a lot of the Queens Roads upgrades have installed dedicated bus lanes where the buses can now pull over and pick children up from schools. There will be pedestrian measures on all villages road signage, speed bumps to reduce traffic speed, as well as other measures to improve the conditions of the roads to prevent accidents. Globally, one of the big challenges you see with road projects though is as you improve road conditions, people drive faster. And particularly outside of village areas where you have these measures in place. And so accidents can increase. So for that very reason, important part of the ongoing works is to work with the LTA on road safety measures. And so you'll see a big increase in speed cameras along the major highways in Fiji, and then other measures to improve driver awareness and signage on sites. But with road safety, it's always a complex agenda, and there's always more that can be done. So certainly if there's insights from your organization that can be shared on how to do that better, they'd be very much appreciated. In terms of ADB expenditure through the government lines, maybe just to clarify, ADB and MDBs operate a bit differently to other bilateral partners. We don't actually spend any money here. There is really no such thing as an ADB project. There's government projects that ADB is a financing source for those projects. So every dollar of ADB spending through our projects that are done in Fiji and other Pacific governments is through the budget. And so it's all essentially on budget expenditure. So everything you would see there. In regards to the role of Japan, yes, Japan is a very important shareholder in ADB, along with many others. Not quite 70%. I think it's about 9 or 10% last time I checked, together with the other 69 members of ADB. So it is an MDB and it has a diverse share ownership. But maybe I'll finish it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. No question? Yeah. Okay. So if there are no questions, I'd like to invite Dr. Ponga, please, to the mic to deliver your closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sana Swati, the Deputy Director General, Independent Evaluation Department for ADB, for the opportunity. And I also like to thank your colleagues and the panelists who are here, especially to your Aaron Patton, the Regional Director, ADB, and to Sherbet, Australian High Commission, Amisha from SPC, Trikunda, Ministry of Finance from Fiji, and also Ben Graham as our advisor. And I also would like to especially acknowledge the presence of our ambassadors, Ambassador from Samoa, and also Ambassador from the Marshall Islands, and also the members of the diplomatic corps. I'd like to extend my acknowledgement to all of you that joining me also listening to this wonderful panel and discussion this afternoon. I specifically thank you, Sona and ADB, for bringing this opportunity. It's very, very timely. Very timely in a time that so many challenges here in the Pacific. We're just staying away from the impact of the COVID pandemic, the past couple of years, coming the climate change, everything. And it values me, I mean, from the discussion, I had few notes. Didn't want to refer much to that, but the mentioning of people and understanding of people. When I listened, I was sitting there and I was not really aware that the ambassador from Samoa is here. He's a very long colleague of mine from government. I'm Tongan, he's Samoan. He's from Marshall Islands. You have Australia here, you have Fijians and all Kiribati, everybody, all from various countries. And that really makes me so happy. And that's the things on its own, that we all come together here and work together with our partner. a development partner, ADB. Several decades ago, we've been in the same seat where Sri at finance sitting in, together with the minister together with the ambassador from Samoa. For those past decades, the voice that I hear from him, the similar voice that we've been working with World Bank, we've been working from ADB together, and we've been knocking on New Zealand doors and Australian doors, all the development partners. For what? For one thing, to develop the capacity and the future generation of the Pacific. Now we're up to a stage that I'm kind of relinquished being in the government of Tonga. Come here and try to work together in a regional Pacific, regional university. Together with SPC, that's the kind of work that we are doing, trying to see how we can facilitate and capacitate or empower the people here in the Pacific. And that is what is most important. We're doing all these project evaluations and working together with ADB. Our lives of our island countries here in the Pacific is more or less determined by ADB and the World Bank. So you all know when we need help to improve ourselves or improve our country's infrastructure or even human capacity development, we don't have the single penny to do that. But thankful today, the Director General, ADB, did you bring this knowledge over here to see? And I'm very thankful our advisor bringing a topic that is very, very important to all of us. A deep dive into the Pacific and learn from what we have down there. But you know, been listening to all the conversations and everything that we've been exchanging this afternoon and just been walking around, it's come to this thing. I thought to myself, why dive in too deep to get a solution? Well, the solution is as we get it just right on the shores and the shallow waters. And those solutions are here. It's you and me, ambassadors and all the people here. And I really like that. One thing that I really pointed out, being in trying to help our people develop. Look at making good decisions. I'm not being biased here because of USP trying to, be sided with me, trying to have more projects for USP. So because education is very important. I tell you later on, I'm currently an ADB supporter, a client, and it is also an ADB student trying to work things out. And as a matter of fact, we do have a project with USP, ADB project. When I started here 14 years or 2014, I started with the project and hopefully it's gonna be finished this year. Same project. I really take Aaron's clear explanations of how the process and procedures are being taken. Of course, that's exactly what is happening. Sometimes we tend to point finger at each other, but that's not that's the process. That's what ADB, that's what World Bank sometimes do. They have a set process, and we must change and try to follow these processes. The later part of the discussion really strikes my heart when you answer the question over there. After SPC was mentioning about how important being contextualized and being to the Pacific, and to hear the increasing number of projects going up, it doesn't really mean that our countries are really going that way. There's some of our countries are with the development rate, economic rate are going this way. We are all trying. But what you're saying, that you are putting your hand and your foot in front of our doorsteps so that you can find us, know us a little bit better, try to find what better solutions for us and how to work together to implement, to design, and also whatever way that we can do to come up very successful projects. Second point. After getting to know each other, I think from seeing the ADB projects, we get to know each other, learn from each other, and try to get things that are most important and relevant. And of course, practical to be implemented. I think it is very important for all of us to see the flexibility, some flexibility at certain stages from ADB of the projects. Taking 4 or 5 years, I'm not just talking here from experience, one project that I'm currently doing, and fortunately is one of the successes and the positive success projects when I was in Solomon Islands a couple of weeks ago and in the past month. It is the USB, a new USB construction is one of the positive projects. But it didn't come easy. It took some time to get the project approved. And we finally got the Kiribati campus done immediately, and then we moved from there to the Solomon Islands. I also like your report to see the preparations of some of the things over there. It is not ADB's fault, it's also our fault. But that really brings us together to one thing of a third thing, that in order for a project to be successful, we all need to work very well together. At some point in the process, at some point in the journey, that we need to be flexible to each other. Even though ADB has a process, we have to change. But the question may be, ADB, maybe it's, you may need to change and reconsider your ways so that we'll be able to work together. But those are the kind of weaving things. Being in the Pacific, you know, all these ladies over here, they're being, you know, sitting, growing up at home, weaving all the times. Sometimes you don't stop your weaving and go out here somewhere, you know, come back and continue the weaving. At the end of the day, what you get? A very beautiful, nice mat that is put over there and invite all our guests and our development partners to come and be our chief guests, so that we can work together in getting our project well done. However, in that process of flexibility and everything, I think it's very important you have picked one very important thing also earlier, is the constant monitoring and evaluation of projects. Because the sense of flexibility should come together over there, because if you leave the project fixed from the beginning, as you well mentioned earlier, during this process of 10 years of a project that I have been working on, things have changed beyond our control. The project is rated A+, successful, but it's only the first phase. What happened to the second phase? Because of all the time delayed, has escalated all the cost. And the only thing that I can do with my weak hands with USB, not a commercial entity, is to be able to cut off the project in half. Let's finish the first project. Let's enjoy the first one that is positively coming up this time. But I think those are the kind of things. I don't know how to get the second phase going. But, you know, I mean, I'll ask the ADB, even though it's a loan, but they also have grants. Maybe, you know, it's the same with other governments, the Fiji government and other governments, Marshall Islands and some more. We may be able to reconsider, but depending on the re-evaluation at the proper time, quick enough, so that we'll be having kind of a rolling plan in a project so that we can fix the problem as it goes and fix it at a timely stage where we can see the project successfully completed. It makes you smile, makes me smile, and make the ambassadors smile, and also the rest of the people of the Pacific. Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to thank you all. Thank you, ADB. Thank you all the panelists, the wonderful discussion. Also our advisor, thank you very much for bringing such a great work that you have combined together. It's a great and eye-opening thing for us. And we are looking for positively. And one of those people like Ashwin. We are positive thinkers, we are positive implementers. There's nothing negative at all. We see things now, if there's anything negative, oh, we're gonna put it aside. We only look for the positive and make use of all the ADB representatives among your countries, okay, to make sure that they provide us with the best advice and contextualized advice so that everybody can benefit. Thank you very much and hope you will travel safely and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, everybody, and the refreshments outside. We would love you to partake of them.